Welcome back to Thrive and Beyond. Today we have with us Rocco Deleo. Rocco Deleo shares a very transparent and compelling story. Listen in as he shares more.
Which we have been, but I didn't know that at the time, or whether we were going to be divorced or whether we were going to get through this. I thought that would have been my story. But the story, ironically, on my second wedding anniversary, took a dramatic twist. Just a terrible twist. When my son was 12 at the time, his therapist reached out to me and said,
Welcome to Thriving Beyond, the podcast with stories of thriving through when the obstacles are far from few. Here's your host, whose own story has been featured in Chicken Soup for the Soul, Vidal Cisneros Jr.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Thriving Beyond. I'm excited because today we have Rocco Deleo. Rocco has been featured in the Goodman Project and is the host of The Real Dad Show. And he's also been featured on We Rad Dads. And Rocco is here to share how internal change creates external growth. So welcome to Thriving Beyond, Rocco. We're excited to have you and honored to have you. How are you doing, brother?
I am doing great, and the feelings likewise. I'm honored to be on your show, man. This is too much fun.
Yes, brother. I know it's been a minute since we chatted, and Rocco has been doing his podcast for a while. How long have you been podcasting, Rocco?
I have done. I've been doing this about a year and a half now. I think last night I just edited number 68, and a bunch of in between episodes too. We like to have fun with those.
Right on, man. I'm loving the Real Dad Show, and if you could sum up what you do in one sentence or less, Rocco, what would that one sentence be?
Yeah, as far as the Real Dad Show goes, I am growing as a Christian and as a father, and I'm putting it all out there for my audience to see the growth. That was a little more than one sentence.
No worries.
I cheated. I'm a rebel.
We like rebels. We like game changers on Thriving Beyond, no doubt. So what is a morning ritual that you implement or that you use to help ignite your day, whether it's you're having the crappiest day out there or you're having maybe the best day and you just want to ignite further?
Yeah, I love this question, although I'm not sure how original I'm going to be because I listen to a lot of different podcasts and a lot of different people talking about one of the biggest success factors about successful people is waking up early in the morning. And I'm no different. If I'm not feeling well or my daughter's up late at night and I'm not getting up early, I have a hard time catching back up. So I get up early, and I have an ideal day template, and it typically starts with having a cup of coffee, reading the Bible, having some quiet time, and recently I've added some journaling. And for me, having that quiet time in the Bible time, I know that's not everybody's start. Maybe it's reading a book for other people, but for me, it's reading the Bible and digging into it and thinking about how it's related to how the week is going, how the day is going, and I just build that as my foundation moving forward. And I have time stops. I'm a single dad, and I know I've figured this out that like no matter what, I have a hard stop at 6:45 a.m. I've got to get the baby up. I've got to get everybody going. I know the times that I can do nothing, and then I know the times that I have to get going. So once we do that, it's probably normal. Everybody else knows, we got to get the kids breakfasts and lunches and get them off to school. And then I come back and I have my week templated out. I used Michael Hyatt's ideal week thing from an Excel spreadsheet. Certain days I go running when I get back from dropping off the kids, and certain days I do some planning related to work or related to my podcast. The main thing behind all that is I'm intentional about it. I know Monday I do this, Tuesday I do this, and that keeps me on track. So I don't have to think, what am I supposed to be doing right now? And when I fall off that, as I do sometimes because life happens, I have a hard time getting back. I have a hard time getting back on it. Sometimes just like, let me just get through the day and start all over tomorrow.
Right. I hear you on that. It's you have to be super intentional with everything you do. And I like how you mentioned you have a hard stop. So there's that framework of chunking time and you're very deliberate with your time, and that's great. You respect your time, especially with your family as well, making sure you're there for them, and you show up as a dad and as a parent and as a friend, right? For those that you need to be there for. So I love that. So now let's kind of get into the meat of Thriving Beyond. Meat of the show that we like to talk about is the toughest life storm that we've faced. Now I know you've gone through some current situations that a lot of people can relate to, and maybe some other people cannot. But I love your transparency. I know we've talked about this, off the record, and I love how brave you are and how vulnerable you've been just sharing this stuff with your audience. So what is one of the toughest life storms that you faced so far, Rocco? If you could kind of paint that picture for us from the global view and then bring us down to the curbside view so we can really dig deep into unpacking day to day, what it looks like, and how you feel going through it, or how you felt going through some of those situations, so that our listeners can really relate to your story. Because I know a lot of listeners out there are going through their own hell, they're going through their own life storm, and they need some strategies. They need to know they're not alone. So I thank you for being on the show, and I thank you for sharing this story you're about to share.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really do feel like there is healing in sharing the story. I know that's not everybody's way, but for me, it definitely is, and that's a core of what my show is about, is telling my story. So my story, I thought my story was going to be the guy who was married to someone who was an alcoholic, and she was addicted to pain pills as well. And dealing with that, and dealing with somebody who this all came out when there was a major car accident. She had two children in the car, and luckily nobody was majorly hurt, but she was arrested and there was a DUI, and that sort of unlocked a lot of different things. Like, wow, the financial repercussions that I'm still suffering today. And then understanding her addiction and going forth from there 3 times through rehab within less than a year, and struggling through that, and just seeing. I know there's a lot of people. I have a lot of friends who are recovering addicts, and they're amazing people, and I give them a lot of props for being able to get through this. I didn't see that in my journey, but I didn't see it right away. Retrospectively, I look back and I go, wow, I was just getting dragged through the mud and the same lies over and over and over again. And the first time, sort of, we like to say, like, the rock bottom, right? The first rock bottom I felt as being the husband of someone who was an addict and a narcissist, and just somebody who's not really trying to get better. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And I'm sitting here trying to fix this person. I clearly was a codependent. I remember at one point just surrendering to God. And it just sort of gave me a wake-up call. I'd grown up Catholic, and I had this sort of lukewarm relationship with God. But at this point, I was like, I am desperate, God. Help me. I can't do this anymore. And that's when I had mentioned to you, I connected with Shane Raymer, who has a show. He talks to addicts in recovery. And him and I spoke, and he kind of talked me through some stuff from the other side. And what that helped me do was give me a perspective of what somebody who wants to get better will do and will say, versus somebody who doesn't want to get better will do and say. So this went on for about 8 months, 7 months, something like that. And I thought this was going to be my story, honestly, that I was going to be the guy, whether we ended up getting divorced, which we have been, but I didn't know that at the time, or whether we were going to be divorced or whether we were going to get through this. I thought that would have been my story. But the story, ironically, on my second wedding anniversary, took a dramatic twist. Just a terrible twist. When my son was 12 at the time, his therapist reached out to me and said that, hey, at the time, my wife molested your son. And that's just like, wow. I don't know if it really matters that it was our second anniversary day, because that was the end of it. That just took the wind out of my sails, and that was completely unexpected. Again, everything in retrospect seems to make a lot more sense. I've gone back over different things and go, oh, it does make sense. And we're in the middle of a criminal investigation at this point. She has been formally charged. So going through that recovery, and I won't belabor all the details because I know that's not really what the show is about. But what that did to me was really forced me to look at myself and my role in my family. And I obviously had to take a stand. I kicked her out of the house and filed for legal separation, then filed for divorce, and really had to take a different approach because there was no more healing the marriage. It was still accepting reality, and to throw, I guess, a little bit an added curveball to this is I am a victim of, and I've shared this before. I'm a victim of, I was molested as a child as well. So that actually was like, I have something else, more fuel for the fire, I guess, because there's a lot of anger there. And I've struggled with anger. I still do. I don't want anyone to think that I am over the anger. I get it all the time, and it's a major struggle. But there was a point, I took some time off from my show, and I moved it from And Dad Make Seven to the Real Dad Show, mainly just because I wanted to disassociate myself from her, and that name was hers. I really felt like I can't live like this. I can't live with this anger. I felt like I was a victim, and I felt like everything I was doing was reactive to what she was saying, because, crazy enough, she molested my son, and I still had to fight for custody of our daughter. I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. And that was January, basically. It was December 29th. I just got custody August 29th. So I've been wondering, and listen, it wasn't a slam dunk at all. Not for 1 second that, oh yeah, she's being charged with child molestation, you're getting full custody. It wasn't a slam dunk. So I've had to deal with that stress. And that process for me was another surrender to Jesus, another surrender to Christ. And what really turned the table was when I was able to say, I forgive her. I forgive her. I don't want to forgive her. I clearly didn't want to forgive her. But that started the journey that I'm on now, that my show, I don't always talk about this on my show. I figure my audience knows it by now, so it's moved on. But that's always a common thread. So that gives you kind of where I'm at now, where I'm, what is the theme going through my life right now is that, because now we've gone through the custody, now the criminal, it's amazing how long these things take. But now I'm going to have to deal with the criminal case. They told me it's going to be at least a year. So listen, man, I can't spend the next year going to a hearing and walking out and being shut down for a day or two because I'm so angry because it looked like maybe she got away with something or there was an objection and like, oh my goodness, she's going to get acquitted. Right. I have to be okay with that. I have to be okay with that because I need to move on with my life.
Yes.
And I already am moving on with my life. But that point where I can't remember when, I want to say it was maybe February, maybe a little later in the year, when I really sat down and said, I have to forgive her. I forgive her. God, I don't want to forgive her. But it's okay to not want to forgive her. It doesn't matter what you want. The Bible says to forgive her. It doesn't say you want to forgive. It doesn't say you have to want to forgive her. It just says you have to forgive her. So I found that loophole, but I forgave her. And I bounce back and forth. I feel like sometimes I unforgive her. And what I'm sharing a little bit about me right now, this back and forth I have in my head, I like to share. I share that with my audience because I believe there's a lot of people out there that are going through similar type things. Some worse, some not as bad. But the whole thing is when we get caught up in forgiving someone and then getting angry at them and just saying, oh, see, I didn't really forgive them. And then I beat myself up and then I walk away from my faith or whatever it is that centers me because I get angry. We just lose all that momentum. And whatever it is someone's trying to build, whatever part of their life they're trying to change, I believe that's how the devil gets to you. I believe there's an element of shame there, but you can't keep beating yourself up. So
right, I agree.
Story now is less. My story now is less about, hey, this happened to me and my family. Now it's about how I'm dealing with it from a faith point of view and moving on with my life point of view. Because I think that ties, that connects people. People don't want to hear what I just shared over and over again. What they want to hear is like, hey, I got this thing happen. I got fired from a job, or this happened to me. How do I move on? How do I not hate my boss for throwing me under the bus? How do I not hate my whatever it is, my kids for spending, stealing my credit cards and making me lose my house, whatever crazy thing. And I know people have had crazy things happen. You have to walk away from the anger and just know that it's going to rear its ugly head, but know how to deal with it. And then say, okay, I had two or 3 days where I was, banging my head against the wall, but that doesn't mean I have to go to square one. I'm just going to move on. Mm-hmm. So that's really where I'm at today. Mm-hmm. And I'm focusing on, for me, again, as we shared before we were recording, for me, it's my faith. That is the most important thing to me. And I believe other people have different things that are that centering piece for them. For me, it's my faith, and that grounds me. I don't know how I could do it without that. Just to be honest with you, I don't know how I could stay calm, because I barely stay calm. And
that is so important. And what you said right there is staying calm, breathing. And I just want to say, first off, I commend you for sharing this. I know you're very open and vulnerable with your audience. And these are situations that are very delicate, because this really hits home for anybody out there listening that has gone through that as a child themselves. There's a place internally that you are holding space for that to exist within you. Now, whether that is a physical space, whether that's a spiritual space, whatever it is, releasing it, allowing it to live externally outside of you is the first step. So I like what you're saying is living through faith. So connecting to a higher source and knowing that it gets better, it will dissolve. It's a season, it's temporary. Whatever pain you're going in, whatever you're feeling, somebody else has felt it. There is no emotion in this world that no other human being has not felt. We've all gone through the mirage and the whole barometer of emotions that anyone can feel. So if you are going through something like what Rocco's talking about, just know you're not alone by listening to Rocco share his story. And sometimes that element of having community. Now, for myself, when I was going through my own life story, and Rocco, I know I mentioned to you before that it was connecting to that Christian community. And then I hit a ceiling. I hit a ceiling of growth where I needed more than just counseling through pastor mentorship. I needed professional help, because nobody other than the professional help could help the anger so it could be managed, right? And that's what I highly recommend, is through anger management principles, understanding and being aware of your own emotions, right? Being more emotional intelligent. And I like, Rocco, how you also mentioned that you're taking it day by day. It is a struggle when you are inside the forest and you cannot see the tree line outside of you. You cannot see the clear, open field yet because you're in it. And when you're in the thick of things, you get lost and you forget what you're doing anything for. So connecting to a higher power, higher source, whatever your religious makeup is, that is, I believe, the root of healing. And what I did years ago, Rocco, when I hit my rock bottom point and I was so angry, I was angry even at God, like, why am I going through all of this at once? Are you kidding me, God? What did I do to deserve this? I'm a good person, right? That's what we tell ourselves. The ego plays its role and says, hey, we should not be going through this. Who am I to go through this? Like, I deserve more. And that ego gets in the way of humility. And once you let go of that entitlement that you're so good that you don't deserve anything bad to happen to you, that's when you can really step into that humbleness, that humility to serve others, that it's not about you. It's about finding the lesson, finding your light so you can be the light for others, so that others can be guided by your light and get out of that darkness, get out of that tunnel, and you can lead the way. It doesn't matter if you're in the thick of things right now. You can still lead that march by looking away from your problems, your external problems, and mentoring others and being the light like Rocco is through his podcast. And I love what you've said so far, Rocco. So if we could kind of go into some of the aha moments that have empowered you thus far, because I know there's a couple in there. And if you could share with the audience of Thrive Nation listening, and they want to know, what are some of the aha moments that helped empower you out of your life storm and maybe you're going through day to day?
Yeah, well, a couple things. The for me, where it started was walking with my faith, and that was that moment that I did forgive her, and I did share this in a podcast episode as well, that I could not believe the lifting of anger. And I think we call it consolation. God gives us these consolations. It's like sort of this like, wow, it's like the weight has been lifted. It comes back. Don't let me for 1 second. This is not magic voodoo. It comes back. But I had a moment where I really, because I did not just immediately go, oh, I forgive her because I'm supposed to. God was knocking on the door saying, through my reading and through sermons and through some time. So that was there. But when I was able to forgive her, say, this isn't up to me. I'm focusing on her. Why am I focusing on her? When I forgave her, now I could focus on me and my family and moving forward instead of looking back. That was a big, big moment, because that led to other moments that are maybe a lower on the scale, I guess, if you will, as far as the drama goes. But community is another thing, whether it's a Bible study or whether it's connecting with people on Facebook and Facebook groups. I've connected with a lot of guys from the Real Man Cave on Facebook. There's a ton of different, I think there's The Edge. There's other groups that are specific to dads or whatever thing you're going. Facebook is beautiful for that. And connecting with people, putting your story out there as much as you're comfortable with, and then hearing that other people have gone through similar things. I think it was Brene Brown that talks about the magic of hearing the words "me too." And when you hear that, there's so much freedom and so much peace when you go, hey, I'm not the only one who has gone through this. And then I guess another great aha moment, it comes and goes in my life, this idea of being intentional with my day and with my time. But that's that I go up and down with it. But being intentional with my time, because sometimes I get caught up in life and it gets just busy. And I look at all the stuff that I want to do or my talents that I have, and I'm not doing anything with this, or I've written one blog post in the last 3 months, or I've only ran 10 miles in the last 2 months, and I love to run. I sit down and I get intentional. There's different templates, there are different plans out there. I shared with you, like the Michael Hyatt has a free ideal week template that helps you be intentional. But whatever it is that helps someone, for me, it's that. I'm very detail oriented when it comes to that, because I can't leave anything to chance, because then I'll just want to sit down and watch TV or whatever, and that's not going to be helpful. So being intentional in that, talking about where I'm at today, that's the walk I'm in today. And that really perked up about a month ago. As I said, I've gone ups and downs with this whole being really intentional and using getting things done and stuff like that. But what's really helping me right now is that intentionality, because that leads to me doing the things that help me stay calm, which trail run. I love to trail run. I love to do podcast episodes. I love to write blogs. And as I shared with you, I'm starting to write devotionals now. And I can't do that if I wake up in the morning and go, well, I hope I can get this stuff done, because I also have a full-time job and 3 minor children and also an adult child living in my house. So nothing good that's going to help me move forward in life is going to happen by chance unless I'm intentional about it. So that's all come out, and that's where I sit right now on this interview with you, Vidal, is intentionality and holding on to that for dear life, not letting go of that, and taking that time every Friday, whether it's Friday morning or Friday evening, and taking an hour and just planning out, making sure I'm aligned, my values and my goals are aligned with what I've got planned for the following week, and that I've been close enough for the previous week. So that's where I'm at today, man.
Being intentional, that is the key. That's the name of the game. You got to keep going no matter what you're going through. Thriving is about evolving. Anytime you're going through something very traumatic, there's this recovery period, right? This season of transition, this season of recovery. And sometimes we feel that recovery is enough. And then there's this reinvention of our identity if we choose to be intentional and allow this new identity to come in. And sometimes this new identity rears its ugly head and says, who are we to think that we can take on this new identity? And the past identity wants to fight the new one. And that's where our past does not equal our future. So when we're intentional and we say our past does not equal our future, then we can truly thrive and evolve into something different, right? And that's where I like what you've said, being very intentional. It definitely creates a thriving lifestyle where you're evolving no matter what you're going through in life. You're growing, you're getting somewhere, you're getting the feedback, and there will be those pain moments, right? Anytime we're growing new muscle, the muscle's going to rip, right? Muscle fibers are going to rip and It's going to hurt. And these new muscles, once we see them start to grow and expand, we're like, holy cow, we're gaining ground, we're gaining momentum. We're trying not to look back, and we realize that, yes, this is possible. Whatever we're going through right now, it does not define who we are. And that's what I love about your message through your podcast, is that you're inspiring others through your transparency. So is there a specific mantra, prayer, or affirmation that you've used to empower you through these challenges? Because prayer, being intentional with prayer, is absolutely stellar if you want to ignite your day. I know you mentioned some of that with your morning ritual, but is there an exact prayer or mantra or affirmation that you use throughout your day, or maybe that helped shift things for you when you were really sitting at that rock bottom, like, woe is me, like, holy cow, I'm facing so much. How am I going to get through this, right?
It's funny. I wanted to let you finish reading that or saying that. I'm like, here, I want to jump out of my skin because it's so perfect that it's you that I'm talking to right now, because that's the prayer of gratitude. And you shared this with me when you were on my show. There's so many other things that are really important, but I start off, and I did this directly after talking to you, and I think it was February we spoke, or maybe January, but this idea of gratitude. So I start my day off with thanking God. And sometimes I thank him for you may think it's the silliest things, but I love green grass. And I've recognized I love green grass. And I sit, although my backyard's dead right now, but I'll sit in my backyard or the front yard, or I'll look at the greenery in my backyard. And I thank you, God, that something as simple as green grass makes me feel happy. It makes me feel comfortable. Thank you, God, for being alive today. Just whatever it is. Thank you for that great meeting I had yesterday. Having that spirit of gratitude, and again, I commend you, because that is, when we were talking before, that's the core of who you are, is a spirit of gratitude, because everything flows from that, being thankful. And it goes back to what you said a few minutes ago about humility. Being thankful is a lot with humility, because what we need to avoid is pride, and pride in a bad way, being overly cute in that sense. There's a difference between confidence and pride. I won't dig too much into that, but when everything is about me, and what can I get from the world, you're just going to be let down. And the world's not going to give to somebody who says, give me. The world's going to give to somebody who says, how can I help? What can I do for you today? And the fact that you and I are talking is because a friend connected us. I helped him, or he helped me, and somehow, and you helped him, and we ended up getting connected. The spirit of gratitude, and that just gets the day started. And it's not that hard to have a spirit of gratitude, really. And that's that prayer, that affirmation, whatever you want to call it. It's like, thank you, God, for another day. Find a couple things. I hear people say find 3 things. Dude, if it's just one thing, it doesn't matter, man. Something that somebody gets out of bed and they just roll and say, hey, we got new carpet. I like how the new carpet feels on my feet in the morning. It makes me start off to a good day. Something so starts small, and then just build up from that. And then maybe be thankful for 2 or 3 things, 4 things, 5 things, and then you go through your day and you recognize, man, that I am, even through the storm I've been through, I've got amazing kids, a great job. My day job, I love what I do for a living, and I've got a great family. I'm healthy. I've got great friends. I'm very blessed. I know I went through all this junk I went through, but I could be this cranky old man who just hates the world. But I'm not going to be that guy. And I'm going to share that journey. I'm going to share that inner struggle with my audience, because I don't want other people. You don't have to be. Stuff's going to happen. Every one of us has junk happen to us, some worse than others. But it's how you react to it. That's what's going to make a difference moving forward. You cannot shelter yourself from having junk happen to you. It's the bottom line. There's no way around it. You could be a victim or you could be the victor. I want to be the victor. For me, it starts with that spirit of gratitude.
Amen. This is music to my ears. You already know, Rocco. It's all about the gratitude, man. Thanking every single vibrating atom in your body. Just think about the little stuff. Thanking that heart that pumps millions of, cells through your body right there. Millions of blood cells.
Quite ridiculous.
There you go. So we don't realize how many things we definitely should be thanking just so we could have life today. I've met so many people that have gone through worse situations than you and I have gone through, Rocco, and that makes us realize that why are we complaining, right? And then when their attitude is 1,000 times better than ours, we're like, holy moly, what is wrong with us? That puts things into so much perspective. And that's why when I was going through my struggle, I know for some of the listeners out there, they might have heard this before, but when I was going through my struggles, I started praying for, give me some cancer patients to show up in the middle of my life storm, please, God, so you can humble me and I can really see that life is okay with me. Like, there's other people that I need to serve, and there's other people that I need to learn from. And I learned so much from. Yep.
Perspective is so powerful, man. And God will give it to you, whether you ask for it or not. But when you ask for it, maybe it's a little bit easier to see, and you could change sooner, so the storm doesn't have to. So maybe if it's God's plan, the storm won't have to last as long if you're more open to it. But that's not up to me, right?
Exactly. So let's kind of get into what has been some of the best advice that you've received from a coach or mentor that really shifted things for you, if you can recall.
One of the biggest things, and I actually just started a new mastermind group. It's called the Stretched Mastermind Group. So it really, that kind of says it in the answer there, is stretching ourselves and stepping out of your comfort zone. Not, if I'm comfortable, and I've been pretty comfortable with my podcast, and I've been pretty comfortable with my day job. And listen, I've been pretty comfortable, at least for a while, in what I do as a father with my children. And that tells me I'm not trying hard enough. I need to, now I can't become an expert in all these things all at once, but I need to prioritize. And the advice is stretch yourself. Always find one area at a time, focus on develop that and get out of that comfort zone. Learn something. Maybe it's reading some books or getting in a group of other dads. And for me, other Christian dads. And hey, how do you get your kids more involved in the church? What are things that you can do to really get that relationship going with your kids? And at work, maybe it's looking at somebody who is higher ranked, and I'm a sales guy, so maybe somebody who made a higher bonus, somebody who's a higher rank. Like, hey, what are the couple different things? I'm sure we're doing 85% of the same things, but what's that 15% that you're doing that I'm not? And stepping into that, like, where's one of those 5 things you're doing that I'm not? How can I get better? How can I learn how to get better at what that is? Very important to be stretching ourselves to the point of it hurts, right? As you were talking about using the exercising analogy, that the muscle fibers broke down. Maybe it's our emotional fibers get broke down, that it hurts. Then okay, we're doing something here. It hurts a little bit. That means it's good. Nothing good in life is easy, cheap, free, right? Or painless. The other thing that I had from a mentor is actually a former boss at work. I was always heard the whole mantra, for the job you want, not for the one that you have. But he kind of put me in my place and said, listen, man, you need to master the job you have now. Master it before you start looking at the other job. Don't look too far ahead, because you got to be here today and you've got to impress people and you've got to finish the mission you have in front of you today. And I know that may go in the face of some people who are always super ambitious, but that doesn't take any of the ambition away from me. In fact, what I learned from that was I love my job. And when I got better at the job I was doing, I enjoyed it even more. And as a sales guy, I made more money, but I enjoyed the job more. And then real opportunities, much better opportunities, have presented themselves that I haven't taken because I love what I do. So those two things, stretching yourself thin, always improving, but making sure you're mastering right where you're at right now. If you're a single dad, you talked about seasons. If you're a single dad, or if you're a dad with young kids, focus on that and just master that. Get really good at changing diapers. I don't know. Get good at carrying a baby in groceries with one hand. Whatever it is, embrace that and be the best whatever you are today. Be the best that right now, and the opportunities will present themselves.
I love what you said. It goes back to that principle, sharpening the saw. If you want to master anything, master first that one kick, not trying to do 1,000 kicks, learn 1,000 different forms. Just master that one basic form and build that foundation. So this goes back to foundational principles. So I love that. And what is your best 2 to 3 step formula for anybody out there that is going through similar circumstances that needs 2 or 3 simple steps to thrive beyond this adversity that they're facing currently?
Well, I think the first thing is to recognize where you're at. You mentioned the forest and the trees. When you're in the middle of the forest, if you're holding onto a tree real tight, you just see that one tree. You need to get some perspective. You really need, and you have to. For me, it was admitting where I was, and God honest truth, man. If if that criminal thing hadn't come up with my ex-wife, I don't know that I was really seeing where I was. I was miserable, and I was in a downward spiral because I was just enabling it. I was letting it happen. So that's the first thing is you have if things aren't going right, things don't seem to be like you have all these I do these things, nothing's happening for me. Take a step back. Maybe you're in the wrong place. Maybe you think you're somewhere that you're not. That's the first thing. And once you go from there, it starts to get a little bit easier because you go, okay, you know what? I'm in a bad marriage or I'm in a bad job. Now my focus is on moving to the next step, not being a victim, but moving to the next step and knowing what you're good at and what you enjoy. Those are not always the same things. Sometimes we're good at things that we don't enjoy. And sometimes we're good and we enjoy things that don't make any money. So understanding how all those things intersect. If you could find a place that you could support your family, what is it, where you're good at and where what you like doing, that intersection is called passion. If you could find that's a great place. And just creating some time for yourself. It's so important to work on yourself and not feel guilty. As a single dad myself, I have struggled with wanting to do my podcast. This little identity crisis I've gone through. It takes time away from my kids. It takes focus away from doing stuff I could do with them. But listen, man, you've been on an airplane before. What do they say with the air masks? Put your air mask on first, because if you pass out, you're not going to be there to help your children. You have to work on yourself first, and don't have any shame in that. And that is not hubris or pride. That's just you being human. Hey, I need to develop myself. I need to go running. I need to write. I like to read. Finding those things that are your quote unquote working on yourself. And then I'll give you a bonus is if you can find those things and bring your family into it, that's an added bonus. Taking my kids on hikes, runs, reading with my kids. Listen, man, I threw my kids in my podcast on a few episodes, and my downloads like went through the roof. I just bring my kids in. It's amazing. My 3-year-old climbs in here and just starts talking gobbledygook, and people love it because I don't know, it just somehow it works, but it's cute. So that's a great place to start. But the first thing, man, is you got to get out of the forest. You got to get a better view of where, if I could only say one thing, and that's what changed me so much, was understanding really what the situation was. And then, of course, I was able to see I couldn't fix it. I had to move on.
Love what you're saying, brother. So step 1, gain perspective. Number 2, figure out what you're good at and stick to your guns, right? Building up those foundational muscles there. And then number 3, energize you. Love yourself first. If you don't love yourself first enough to give yourself and block out time to re-energize yourself, then there's no way you're going to be able to do that for somebody else or have that energy for your kids. That I see is most parents' biggest hang up, especially, and I hate to name names, but most mothers just give all their energy, all their juice to their kids. They're like, my kids are my focus. And I'm like, yes, I love you for that, mothers. But how and when do you re-energize? Right?
You got to fill up that tank.
Yes. When are you refilling the tank? What are you doing? Are you doing some yoga, meditation? Like, please refill your cup so it's overflowing consistently, because kids drain us. And then again, go back to what brings you alive, right? Connecting with your significant other, if you're still with them, connecting with your life partner, being there for them. And whether it's intimate, whether it's making quality time, creating magic moments, I see marriages fail right there because there's this myth that our kids come first. And I'm sorry, they don't.
Our kids don't want martyrs. Our kids do not want us to martyr ourselves for them. Yes. And that's the new thing. Like the parents, so many parents, I've been there, man. We martyr ourselves for our kids and fall apart. We can't do that.
Right. We
got to take care of ourselves.
Right. Then it's the single parent life forever. And then you join that crowd and it's like, yeah. But on the inside, you're like, holy cow, this is misery. I feel so alone, and that's where this empowering women movement, I really feel needs like its counterpart with a dad-driven empowering movement that says, hey, we dads need the same thing, but guess what? We all have to start from that self-love, that point that came where our kids came into the world because of our love, because we were there, because we woke up in the morning and we kissed our wife first or husband first before we, gave it to our kids, or we took time for ourselves to show God and be thankful to God that we love ourselves, right? And then we honored everybody else, according to that priority order. I've seen this too with, I don't know if you guys watch Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer. I love watching the dog whisperer because it's not about dog psychology. It's about human psychology, right?
It's not about the dog. I love it. I think that was his book. I think that was the title. I may be wrong. I think that was what it was. Not about the dog.
I believe so. I believe you're correct.
If not, it's a great title for his next book. Right.
And I just wanted to preface this story that Cesar Millan, I've seen him come into houses, and one thing that I noticed, and I took this little story away, and I was like, wow, so empowering, is that if we just give love to the youngest, the little puppy, and we're just coddling that little puppy all the time, and we're not giving love to the rest of the pound, the rest of the herd, right? Mm-hmm. Then they all feel this spite for the one that's getting all the love, right? Then they start attacking it, and they're like, oh my God, Who are you? So Cesar Millan would come in here and do his thing, and he may, through self-awareness, clarity came through, and the dog owner started saying that, okay, maybe I shouldn't be over loving the youngest one or the favorite one. I should be giving them all attention equally, right? And as parents, we do that to an extent, but also there comes this other part of it. And I know I've mentioned this man, years ago, is that we have to have that wisdom of how to love each one differently, right? There's some of the kids, some of our children are rebels, right? Some of our children have more introverted social skills. The other ones have more external. So understanding and being aware of when to nurture every personality type takes awareness, right? But it comes from learning through our mistakes, saying, yes, where have I messed up? Hey, can anybody give me some constructive feedback? And ask questions and just say, hey, just wondering, what do you guys think? So far, constructive feedback. And I actually did that this weekend when I spoke at this event here, and I got some feedback from some of my colleagues. And guess what? I know I'm not perfect. I know I'm evolving. That's the only way you're going to thrive. And I love the constructive feedback because I'm my own worst critic already. So I just wanted it confirmed. And then here we go. I write it down, jot it down, and you get better the next time. But if we're too stubborn to see, our errors or our mistakes, or have somebody like Cesar Millan come in here and coach us through some stuff because we think we're just the all-knowing of everything, then we're not going to gain that insight, that wisdom, that enlightenment. So I love what you're saying too, by the re-energizing yourself, feeding yourself first. So, and also giving yourself that oxygen from that mask first. So this is great stuff, man. You've got me flowing now, and I'm in flow state with this. But
watch out.
Let's get into the last question. Now, this is always the deep dive question. So if 100 years from today, there was a statue that was erected in your name, Rocco, and you would be remembered for that one legendary thing, what would that one legendary thing be?
It's funny you say that now, right after what we just talked about, because when I looked at this, when I was reading this, I was thinking, well, he was a great dad. I want a statue that says he was a great dad. That kind of contradicts what I just said. And I say this kind of kidding, but also like, this is me learning right now, right on the air, learning like maybe I need to challenge myself. I want to be known as a great dad, but there's more, because it's not all about being a great dad. As I'm thinking on the fly now, because I'm changing my prepared answer, I think it goes back to talking about empowering men and this men's movement. I don't know if I'm going to be known as the next Billy Graham or whatever. I don't know, but if I'm making a difference in right now, my sweet spot, I believe, is that this empowering men's movement, my little corner of the world, especially Christian men. If I'm known for that, like, hey, this guy helped a few people, even if it's one person, although we want it to be more, if it's one person, become happier and a better man, and that person was able to help other people, that makes me happy. That's what fuels me. That's what keeps me going when I want to quit my podcast. When I go, well, this thing's taking hours out of my week, and it's not making me any money. Not that I'm trying to make money. It's not making me any money. In fact, it's costing me money. But then I get a text message from, as I was sharing with you, like I get every time I want to quit my show, I get a random text message from or a Facebook message from somebody who listens to my show, telling me how I'm changing lives, or I'm helping things, or they're getting wisdom from me. And again, we talked about imposter syndrome earlier as well, where I go, me? Wait a minute. But holy smokes, man, that is such an honor. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I pour myself out there, and I'm just an open book, and I completely overshare all the time. I have to watch what I say, but I overshare. But that's my long answer for a short question is I'm making a difference and helping out other guys on their journey. That will be a successful legacy for me.
Amen. Being the light for others. Love it.
Yes.
So Rocco, what is the best way for somebody to connect with you and learn more about you today?
Well, definitely go to roccodeleo.com. That's where I put everything I create, and I share that out. And there is a way to contact me on that. But if you want to see what I'm writing and my podcast and the devotionals that I'm starting to create, go to roccodeleo.com. if you want to communicate with me, Facebook, send me a friend request on Facebook. That's probably, you can communicate with me on the website, but Facebook is probably the fastest way. Send me a friend request, Rocco Deleo, and we'll get chatting, because I love to make new friends, and I love to have conversations with people about this kind of stuff. So roccodeleo.com, or find me on Facebook.
There you have it. And he's also the podcast host of The Real Dad Show on iTunes. Go download, subscribe, and leave him some rating and reviews as well. Rocco, thank you once again, brother. And we know you're definitely thriving. Thank you for your transparency, and keep rocking out The Real Dad Show. Loving it.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
All right. This has been a wrap. This is another episode of Thriving Beyond. And as always, keep going, keep growing, and keep thriving.